How's it going, Reliance? I'm your host on Jupiter, and welcome back to yet another Temtem Tuesday. This Tuesday's topic is going to be some tips and tricks that you could use to help you get an edge in your ranked games through the pick and ban phase. The first tip that I have for you today is know your Temtem team. Though this sounds quite obvious, a lot of people regret going into competitive not exactly knowing everything about the Temtem that you have, and thus your pick and ban phase is just not going as well as you would want. Well, Jupiter, how do I know that I know my team? How do I know if I'm going through the pick and ban phase the way I should be going through? Well, typically the first notation of this happening is your enemy team always has Temtem that have typings that are better than the typings that your team can deal with, or you just don't seem to have a lot of Temtem that are good against a majority of the enemy team. Now, of course, not every single pick and ban phase is going to be good, but there are some ways that you can do your pick and bans in order to manipulate the enemy team and your team to help you get a more beneficial pick whenever you go to pick your Temtem, and it also will force your opponent to pick something that's a little worse off on their side. Now, the reason you're doing this is because the more Temtem that you have that are better picks to deal with what they're picking, the more likely you're going to succeed at defeating them. Now, of course, if you don't have a team that's very efficient at fighting someone, or you know that your team is weak against a majority of what the enemy team has, you're kind of out of luck at that point. Main reason being is you only really have 2 bans for the enemy team, and the enemy team has 2 bans on your team. Now, everything you need to know about sort of this kind of pick and ban phase you're going to see in this video, the X's that you see on that line in the middle, and the little sort of gems that you see in between those X's are your bans and your picks. So the X's are bans and the circles are picks. As you can see, the cycle is ban for you, ban for the enemy team, pick for the enemy team, 2 picks for you, 1 pick for the enemy team, a ban for the enemy team, a ban for you, a pick for you, 2 picks for the enemy team, 2 picks for you, and then finally the last pick for the enemy team. So in total, that's 4 bans and 10 picks in total. 5 picks for you, 5 picks for the enemy, 2 bans for you, 2 bans for your enemy. Now, because of this system, you need to make sure that whenever you go to ban a Temtem from the enemy team, you're not opening yourself up to a different pick that they're going to choose, that your team is going to be, is going to have a hard time getting over. In my team comp currently, I'm running sort of a very aggro team with a Hidari for the support, for the main support. Now, my Hidari being my main support, it's also a very high damage dealer, as you'll see in one of the clips that we're going to have to show you here, because a lot of my attack-focused Temtem are also buffers that can buff other attack Temtem. So I can essentially have 2 sweepers out on the field that are buffing each other in maybe 1 or 2 turns, and then I'll start switching them out and making sure that I'm putting Temtem out that aren't going to take, double the damage needlessly. And then on top of that, I'll have my Hidari there to get buffed by those sweepers as well, and my Hidari himself can turn into a very, very, very tanky support with some sweeping capabilities through my Nesla in this fight up here. Now, the team that I'm using is also not exactly the typical team that you're going to see in competitive games. In this game above here, I didn't really get some good bans right off the bat. I should have banned Gialis and Kinu, but I sort of opted for something else, just because I thought that my Saipat would be able to deal with the Gialis and Kinu on his own. I was heavily wrong about this, and their Gialis pretty much just completely sweeps me entirely on its own. Now, having this knowledge about the enemy's Temtem also comes into play. If you don't know much about other Temtem aside from your own team, you're going to have a hard time banning the right Temtem that your team should hopefully be able to deal with. So back to some of the tips and tricks of the trade here. Our next tip here is going to be understanding your opponent's roster. And this comes into play whenever you have to figure out what Temtem you're going to be good against and what Temtem you're going to be bad against. And knowing that, you're also going to be able to realize what their buff setup is going to be, so you can try and delay that as long as possible, or maybe you can see and make a read and say, okay, I'm going to switch to this Temtem, and it's going to stop this combo from ever coming into play, so on and so forth. Which brings us to our final tip, which is banning through picks and picking through bans. If you can do this efficiently, essentially you're going to rack up a lot of points. And the way that I divvy this up is I pretty much say, if I get a good pick myself that's not controlled by the bans of the opponent, that's a +1 for me, and a +0 for them. If that happens on their side, that's a +1 for them and a +0 for me. And typically the team that is going to win in the match, in this rank position, is going to be the team that has at least +5, maybe +4, but typically you're not going to see past 5, and you're not going to be able to really get past 6 or 7, just because if you're doing this correctly, the picks should be split up across the board, and your opponent should have a couple, but you should have more. Or you're going to have a couple and your opponent is going to have more. Pretty much the team that I'm going for is a team that is unknown. It's going to be kind of like an underdog team, because typically you see a lot of people put a lot of research into all the meta competitive teams and compositions, but they don't really look at anything else other than what is meta. And so what I have put together here is actually not just an anti-meta team, but a team that does not have any identity whatsoever. Now, the main face on this team is actually Hidari. I never want them to ban Hidari from me, because Hidari is actually my secret weapon. The reason for this being is I have set him up to be very, very, very tanky, but also he is capable of doing some decent amount of damage if one of my sweepers is able to buff him. The idea is that Hidari spends several rounds building up to use Bard Shield, while also using Allergic Spread to slowly whittle down the opponent. However, whenever he doesn't have Bard Shield, or if he doesn't have Spread, then he's just going to end up cheering up one of his teammates. Which also allows me to use some of my more powerful moves more frequently. For instance, my Tataru has the move Lullaby, which is a hold 4 move. Utilizing Cheer Up efficiently means that I actually get to use Lullaby twice in a match, as opposed to just a one-time deal. On top of that, if round 1 I switch to a Psypat and then I cheer the Psypat up, the very first round that Psypat is out, I get to use Rage, which makes him stronger, and will, after 2 rages, he gets to ultimately one-shot a lot of things. Now, buffs and debuffs are very prominent right now in the meta. It's the main way that you really get very, very strong moves on the field, next to obviously doing twice as much damage and things like that. Now, the main reason I have Sand Splatter on my Hidari and some of my other Temtem is mainly because I don't actually have a Earth type Temtem. I don't have a Mud type Temtem, so you know, Sand Splatter is going to actually kind of come in handy if I'm dealing with any Crystal Temtem, but it's not really a big thing. It's just kind of something that I have because I can't really put anything else there right now. Other than that, that's really pretty much all of the tips and tricks I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. You'll go ahead and hear me talk about sort of what I'm doing for the rest of the video. It's going to be me analyzing sort of my plans for what I'm doing and calling out, trying to decide what the enemy team is doing versus my team, so on and so forth. And this first match, I'm pretty sure I lose kind of badly just because I don't have any Temtem to deal with this guy's meta team right now. He definitely outpicked and banned me, where I should have 100% gotten Guy Alice and Kinu out of there, which ultimately are the two Temtem that pretty much absolutely destroyed me. So jumping all the way to the end of this match here, we're going to go ahead and start on our second match and our third match here, just because me losing to a team that pretty much had plus 6 points on me. Obviously, you're not going to learn much from this other than ban Gayaz and Kinu. And don't bring a team into the fray that isn't actually built to be a competitive team just yet. Alright, let's see what his turn is. Crystal Dust. Nice. Knocks his bomb, and he's got Shuin's Horn, so it's not going to be super effective. Don't know why he did that. I'm going to hit him with a Rage here, since I have the ability to do so, and I'm actually going to dig in here with my multiple Pecs. That might actually... doesn't do a lot of damage. Christina, interesting. My attack and defense has been massively buffed here. We got his guide to half, and I think one more of those is going to do it. Ooh, that's going to hurt. Who are you hitting? That. Zephyr. Okay. So it's taken a lot to take one of my guys out. We're going to jump in with Mastion here, because I'm not at all scared of that Whip Lump. I actually think he's going to be switching his Whip Lump out here. If not, then he's not going to switch him out. Interesting. Okay. Wow, he hasn't switched out. Interesting. Okay, he actually hasn't switched him out. He actually got him down with his own use. That might actually take me out, though. Yep, that's some good damage. Looking like your Christine is going to do a lot of damage to himself as well. I'm going to go ahead and rage up here because my Mastion is going to take out Christina and a 2-Vine in the blink of an eye. Calapace is going to go out there and be annoying to deal with as well. I'm going to just go ahead and do regular Toxic Ink, and I'll smack both of them with a Meteor Storm, and we'll see what this does. Interesting. Does not do a lot of damage, but I'm going to go ahead and make you sick. And we'll hit both of you with a Meteor Storm, which is pretty much going to win me this game. Exactly who I wanted. Yep. You're pretty much dead there, buddy. Have a good one. Alright, Mastion's going to die in the next round here, so what I need to do is I'm just going to be able to Toxic Ink you, and maybe we'll get a Meteor Storm in before you die. No, that's going to hit both of you. Oh, actually you're alive still. And I believe that is going to be game. Meteor Storm in for the win. Double effective damage, you're gone, so GG's, well done, well played. So those were just a couple of tips on how you guys can do in your ranked matches, but the best tip of all is you guys watching to the end of this video. So thanks so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like, and I hope to see you next one. See you later. Have a good one. Bye.